Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. More than 80 million Americans on alert for dangerous heat. President Trump in Scotland trying to turn the page on the Jeffrey Epstein saga, and the urgent search for an inmate released from jail by mistake. First, millions of Americans facing days of sweltering heat from Texas to Minnesota to the Northeast, with feels-like temperatures in the triple digits. New York City reporting nearly 150 heat-related ER visits in the past couple weeks. Our weather team tracking it all. President Trump overseas in Scotland with the August 1st trade deadline less than a week away, but increasingly frustrated over questions surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files and what we're learning about that meeting between DOJ officials and Epstein's convicted co-conspirator. Our Rachel Scott is traveling with the president. Sources telling ABC News Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is considering firing members of an influential task force that offers guidance about preventative health services, what it could mean for insurance coverage. A setback for the Trump administration's war on sanctuary cities, the ruling from a federal judge, and why the Venezuelan Little League baseball team was denied entry into the U.S. The urgent search for an inmate released by mistake from the same jail where 10 others escaped earlier this year. A popular dating app touted as a space for women to share information about potential male partners has been hacked. What users need to know. The very conscious coupling between Gwyneth Paltrow and the company at the center of the Coldplay Kiss Cam scandal. The rookie Major League Baseball player homering his way into the record books. And America Strong tonight, the hearing-impaired mother of 6, charting a new course and breaking
Secretary Rubio, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Since becoming Secretary of State, you really have made some big changes here. You've kind of pared things back at the State Department. You've restructured some things here, and you actually say that this was long overdue. So tell me about the changes you made and why you felt like they were so important.
Well, the important thing to know is that we reorganized the boxes, in our org chart in terms of how the State Department functions. This wasn't an effort to go in and get rid of people. It was an effort to reorganize. And now, if you get rid of a bureau you're not going to use anymore, obviously you don't need those positions anymore. And it was very small. It was 1,300 people out of 70 or 50 or 60,000. I read these reports about how we've gutted American diplomacy. It's really silly. But here's the fundamental nature of it. It took too long to get things done. We had too many bureaus, too many offices. They were unaligned with each other. I get these decision memos, and these decision memos have to be cleared by these different desks, these different offices. Some of them had 30 or 40 boxes. 30 or 40 people had to clear it before it even got to me, and that's why it takes the State Department so long to function. So what we're changing on that is, people can certainly give their opinion. If they don't agree with the decision or they have concerns about it, that can be noted. But ultimately, I need to get that decision memo to my desk so we can take action. We can't wait 6 weeks, 6 months to do things. It renders us irrelevant, especially in a world that moves so fast.
Let me ask you about Russia. The president gave Russia 50 days to strike a peace deal or face possibly 100% tariffs. Where do you think Putin is on this? Do you think this is an effective strategy, and what do you expect to see happen?
First of all, I think everybody should be very happy that the American president, the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is focused on peace. There's nothing he wants more than to be a part of peace agreements, stopping wars, preventing wars, ending wars. It's not his war. He didn't start this war. It didn't happen. It never would have happened had he been president, but it did. He inherits it, and he's done everything possible to bring it to an end. I think he's growing increasingly frustrated that despite having very good interactions with Vladimir Putin and phone calls, it never leads to anything. So the time has come for some action here, and I think the president has made that abundantly clear. He's losing his patience. He's losing his willingness to continue to wait for the Russian side to do something here to bring an end to this war that wasn't his war, but he wants to see it come to an end. Since January of this year, over 100,000 Russian soldiers just on the Russian side have been killed. It's a bloody conflict with a lot of death and destruction. A lot of this engagement has been really about playing for time and sort of delay tactics to make it look like they're interested in peace, but not really serious about it. He's not going to fall into that trap of being, pulled into endless talks about talks. peace. And I think he picks up a lot of that from his just understanding of human nature and human behavior, having dealt with, some of the most cutthroat people in business for 40, 50 years.
The negotiator in chief.
Yeah, he enjoys that part of the job.
He does.
He does. He enjoys that part of the job. And I think it's very useful for us because ultimately we know we have the ultimate closer in the administration with our president. And our job is to put these deals together, bring them usually to the 95% range of agreement, and then he comes in at the end and closes it. And whether that's on
this Saturday night, starvation crisis. While Israel allows airdrops of food and supplies into Gaza, aid organizations sound the alarm that it's not enough, and political pressure builds on Canada and the UK to recognize a Palestinian state. Clashes on the Thailand-Cambodia border now in their third day. How President Trump is stepping in to end the fighting. Plus, the Blue Jays soar to new heights for the first time in more than 30 years. Toronto is the best team in baseball. And signs of life.
None of this was there.
A year after the devastating fires, wildlife and other nature return to Jasper, Alberta. Global National reporting tonight, Anthony Robart. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Israel says it has resumed aid airdrops into Gaza and plans to open humanitarian corridors for UN convoys amid growing international pressure. Now, the idea of releasing these images tonight of what it says are pallets full of flour, sugar, and canned food set for delivery. It also repeated its claims that no starvation exists in the territory. But aid agencies say mass starvation is spreading, while hundreds of Palestinians have also been killed while trying to reach the limited aid that has made its way in. Trade Israel reports on the condemnation over what is being described as a hunger crisis reaching new levels of desperation. 5.
Today, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says Israel is breaching international law by restricting the flow of aid into Gaza.
It is a breach of international law to stop food being delivered.
While Israel's military says it has started to airdrop aid into Gaza as more die of malnutrition. The SA government announces a $15 million package to stop disability provider Bedford from entering voluntary administration. A show of unity from Australian and UK ministers in Darwin as they promise to stand together for peace and security. An heartbreak for the Wallaces Alliance snatched victory at the death at the MCG, winning the series in the second test. Hello, BBC News. I'm Alex Thomas. Thanks for your company this afternoon. The Prime Minister says he believes Israel has broken international law by restricting the flow of food and aid into Gaza. The Israeli military has announced it's beginning airdrops of aid to the enclave and will establish so-called humanitarian corridors to allow for United Nations convoys to take food through the strip. Health authorities...
This is Asia Now.
Good afternoon. It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Milakia Silveraji. Let's have a look at the headlines. Reports say cross-border firing has resumed this morning despite US President Donald Trump saying Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to immediate ceasefire talks. Mr. Trump spoke with both leaders, threatening to stop tariff negotiations if the violence continues. Israel begins airdropping food after more than 108 agencies warned that mass starvation would grow in Gaza. The IDF said humanitarian causes will be implemented in densely populated as demand for power surges in the east of
exchanges, courses, and seminars.
And in Singapore, dramatic footage images showing migrant workers racing to save a woman after her car was swallowed by a Singapore sinkhole.
At Nigeria Society, the site of the sinkhole, and I'll tell you more about the rescue and ongoing repair works to restore the collapsed road.
Good morning. Migrant hotel pro-nation
Demonstrating Leeds, Southampton and Nottinghamshire with more planned today as public anger over illegal immigration grows.
But meanwhile, the Home Office is going to set up an elite team of police officers that will track anti-immigration
Migrants who danger the crowd, small and women and children at risk.
President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will meet President Trump today as he tells Europe to get your act together on immigration.
And the head of the NHS warned patients to brace themselves for 6 months of snowballing industrial action as relations between ministers and doctors.
Have been assessing pornography with shocking new figures revealing a tidal wave of young addicts seeking rehab.
And a growing number of students turning to social media influencers for exam guidance, we're asking, have we lost faith in the education system?
Good morning, we are not the underdogs. That's the view of England bossing a big when as the Messis face their Euro final showdown with Spain in Basel tonight will have build up throughout the morning. And the Lions have left it late, but Hugo Keenan's dramatic try clinched the series win against Australia in Melbourne.
Join me later for your full weather forecast to find out the details of whether you could see any rain or showers today.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Newsom, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Good morning, you're watching Sky News Breakfast live from Basel, where this afternoon England's Lionesses will try to win their second Euros title bounce, but to do so, they've got to beat the world champion Spain. Countdown is on for Serena Wigman's team. Can they cap what she calls the craziest tournament matches with the big prize?
Also to come today as Israel begins airdrops into Gaza, we hear from the hero of Live Aid about his horror of what's happening in Gaza. Veteran campaigner Bob Geldof tells Sky News Israel is lying about conditions in Gaza and is dangling food in front of starving mothers. Israel says aid has been dropped into Gaza overnight, but also says combat operations are continuing. Also to come, Donald Trump will put away his golf clubs as he meets the European Commission President in Scotland for vital talks on trade and tariffs. Protecting pavement pints, plans for new bars and music venues to rejuvenate the high street.
And England need wickets on the final day of the fourth test against India as they look to clinch the 5-match series. Good morning from Basel, where England's Lionesses have vowed to give it their all as they bid for back-to-back European titles. Standing in their way is Spain. England know them.
These are our Tories. Israel's military is to resume airdrops of its supplies of Gaza. Don't just be readied. That says the UN says nearly a third of people in Gaza are going days without food. The UN's World Food Program warns that nearly 500,000 people could face what it calls catastrophic hunger by September. The conflict between Thailand and Cambodia has spread along their disputed border. Donald Trump says he's called the leaders of both nations, urging them to stop the fighting, and that they've agreed to quickly meet. So far, more than 30 people have been killed and around 160,000 forced to flee homes. Demonstrators have fled across Scotland to protest against a visit by Donald Trump. Thousands of police have been called in to deal with the crowds. There's tight security at Trump's Turnberry Resort, where the U.S. president played a round of golf. On arrival, Trump criticized Europe's renewable energy and immigration policies. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more news on our website.
Hello and welcome back
back to the programme. You're watching Daybreak. Here are the headlines. Under fire for mass hunger in Gaza, Israel announces pauses in military activity in 3 zones and lets in some aid by air and by road. Thailand and Cambodia continue to shell each other, with the immediate ceasefire by Donald Trump yet to materialise. Africa News. The news.
Hundreds of Tunisians took to the streets of the capital Tunis on Friday to protest against President Kais Saied, describing his rule as an authoritarian regime. They say it's turned the country into an open-air prison. 4 years ago, Saied dissolved Parliament, moved the Prime Minister, and began ruling by decree. This day is a coup against the Constitution and state institutions, against everything the Tunisian people have built. I'm here to demand freedom for political prisoners, freedom for all detainees, lawyers, judges, and honourable citizens filling our prisons. Jailed political opponents, lawyers, and journalists face lengthy prison sentences under anti-terrorism and conspiracy laws. The 25th of July was supposed to be Republic Day, but it's become a day of oppression. The revolution was crushed, and all powers were seized by one man. Regardless of his abilities, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Banners and posters carried the faces of imprisoned opposition leaders. Many others have fled Tunisia, seeking asylum in Western countries. Almost the entire political class is behind bars. Among the women imprisoned are Abir Moussi, Sonia Dahmani, Shiri Fariai, Saïda Mosbah, Suir Bakawi, and journalist Chani Al-Hajj Mubarak. More than 15 women are in prison, something we never thought we'd see. 3 Tunisian women locked up. Tunisia's political turmoil has unfolded against a backdrop of economic hardship and deepening public disillusionment. Morocco's Beit Al-Quds agency has agreed to fund a project aimed at empowering Palestinian farmers in the Al-Quds or Jerusalem Governorate. The agency recently met with the Minister of Agriculture in Ramallah, Palestinian administrative capital in the occupied West Bank. The assistance comes at a critical time for farmers in and around Al-Quds, facing challenges to remain on their land and earn enough money. The support comes at the right time. We thank Morocco and its king, its wise leadership and its people. We believe that their presence on the ground in solidarity with the Palestinian people is deeply appreciated. We would also like to thank them for the food aid interventions in the Gaza Strip. Following the signing, they visited agricultural projects and a sheep farm in nearby villages. Farmers in the region are struggling to preserve their land, which is increasingly surrounded by illegal Israeli settlements. In the first phase, the project will provide them with seedlings, water tanks, and veterinary kits for their livestock.
Tonight, hitting the links and striking deals. President Trump golfs at his course in Scotland while protesters greet him in the street.
I'm Weijia Chang in Edinburgh. President Trump is gearing up for trade talks with a major U.S. trading partner.
Also tonight, deepening crisis, warnings of mass starvation in Gaza after 21 months of war. Dangerous heat, more than 163 million of us at risk this weekend.
Tracking triple-digit temperatures, I'm meteorologist Andrew Kozak. I'm going to show you the hottest places in the country this weekend. Coming up in your forecast.
New aerial video of Alcatraz deportation flights out of the Florida detention center this week.
I'm Nicole Killian. As the Trump administration deportation crackdown continues, lawmakers from both sides of the aisle propose an immigration fix.
Shopping spree, why the rush is on for school supplies.
I'm Allie Bauman with why a record number of Americans are back to school shopping extra early this year.
And later, it's a faded icon that's seen better days, bringing the oldest Bob back to life.
I'm Joy Benedict in Burbank, California, where this giant Bob's Big Boy got a much-needed makeover, and so did his twin.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
deaths from hunger rise and global pressure builds, Israel announces again airdrops of humanitarian aid tonight. Then, a big birthday and a big moment for the Postal Service, 250 years old and now navigating far more than snow, rain, heat, and moon night. And the global debut of a unique boy band featuring 2 North Korean defectors.
I did think that it would be fascinating to have North Korean defectors trying out something in K-pop because, who doesn't love the story of someone from a humble background chasing their dreams?
Time on Spelling Bee, Wednesday, 8:30.
Hello, thank you very much for being with us. You are watching Amish Shakil 5858 and I am Amir Budnam.